He had already settled his bill when he came to the desk with the suitcase. It was 2 in the morning. The lobby was empty. He set the suitcase down on the floor between them and told her that someone would come for it. He told her not to open it. Then he picked up his keycard and his jacket and walked toward the door, and just before he stepped outside he turned back and said, "I'm sorry to put this on you." She didn't ask what he meant. She thought she would understand later. She was right. Margaret had been working the night shift at the hotel for 12 years. She had started at 29, after her daughter was born, and she needed a schedule that let her be home in the afternoons. By the time the girl was old enough not to need her there, Margaret had stopped thinking about leaving. The night shift suited her. She liked the quiet. She liked the specific kind of attention it required. Reading guests the way other people read weather. Knowing from a person's walk or their tone at check-in what kind of night was ahead. The hotel was a mid-range property in a corridor city. The kind of place people chose because it was close to the highway, not because they wanted to be there. Business travelers mostly, the occasional family on a budget. People who needed a room, not an experience. Margaret had seen enough of both to know the difference at a glance. The man she would later know as Carter had checked in 3 nights before the suitcase. He had given his name as R. Carter, paid cash for 3 nights, and presented a valid ID that matched. He had no trouble. He ordered nothing from the kitchen, used no services, left no dishes outside his door. He nodded when he passed her desk. He had the kind of presence that registers as normal and then becomes strange only afterward, when you are trying to reconstruct it. She had noticed one thing at check-in: he was tired in a specific way. Not road tired, tired like a person who had been thinking too hard for too long. She had seen it before in guests. She had not thought much of it at the time. She put the suitcase in the back office. It was a dark green carry-on, the kind with 4 wheels and a retractable handle. Not heavy. She lifted it without strain. She set it against the wall next to the file cabinet and went back out to the desk. She told herself she would think about it in the morning. She did not think about it in the morning because the morning shift came on and she went home and slept, and when she woke up she made coffee and watched the news, and the suitcase was not the news. But it was in the back of everything she thought. She went back to work the next night and it was still there. She spent the first hour going back and forth. She had no instructions beyond the ones he had given her. Someone will come, don't open it. She did not know what someone meant. She did not know how long she was meant to hold it. She did not know what she was supposed to say to the person who came, what proof to ask for, what name to expect. He hadn't given her any of that. She pulled the registration form and called the emergency contact number. It rang 4 times and then disconnected without going to voicemail. She wrote the number on a piece of paper and put it in her pocket. She did not call the police that night. She told herself it was because she didn't know enough yet. She was not entirely sure that was the real reason. On the second night she searched the name on the registration. R. Carter produced nothing useful. She tried the phone number he'd given at check-in, which was not the same as the emergency contact, and it rang without being answered. She sat with the back office door open and looked at the suitcase for a while. It looked like a suitcase. It did not tell her anything. She thought about opening it. He had asked her not to. She had held that instruction without deciding why. Not out of obedience, exactly, but out of something more like respect for the weight of the request. He had said it the way a person says something they've been preparing to say. She left it closed. On the third night, at 11:30, a man walked in through the main doors and came directly to the desk. He had not slept recently. That was the first thing she registered. The second was that he was trying to appear calm and not quite succeeding. He said, "I'm looking for something that was left here for me." She asked him what name. He said, "Carter." She looked at him. He was mid-30s, maybe a few years younger. He had the same kind of tired she had seen on the man who left the suitcase, but rawer, less controlled. She asked him how he knew about it. He said his brother had sent him a message, that he should come to this hotel and ask for something left in the name of Carter. He said he didn't know what it was. He said he hadn't been able to reach his brother since. She asked for the brother's first name. He told her. It matched the initial on the registration. She asked for his own ID. He gave it without hesitation. The last name was the same. She got the suitcase from the back office and brought it to the desk. He looked at it the way you look at something you've been afraid to see. Then he lifted it and carried it to one of the lobby chairs near the window and sat down. She watched from the desk. She did not pretend to be doing something else. He opened the suitcase. Inside there was a notebook, a phone sealed in a plastic bag, and an envelope. He read the notebook first. He read slowly, turning back sometimes to reread a section. He picked up the phone, looked at the screen, scrolled through something, set it down. Then he opened the envelope. She watched his face while he read the letter. It changed, not dramatically, not the way faces change in films. More the way a person looks when a thing they suspected becomes a thing they know. He finished reading, folded the letter back, and sat with it in his hands. She thought about going over to ask if he was all right. She did not go over. She understood, without being certain how, that the right thing was to stay behind the desk and let him sit. She would piece together the rest over the following weeks, from a news article, from one thing he said before he left that night, from the shape of what she already understood. Carter had been a private investigator. He had been hired 6 weeks earlier to find a missing woman named Diane, who had disappeared from a city 2 hours north without warning or explanation. The client was Diane's husband, a man who ran a small financial services firm. Carter had found her. She was not missing the way the husband had described. She had left, deliberately, carefully. In the weeks before she disappeared, she had discovered that her husband's firm had been systematically defrauding clients for years. Quietly, methodically, in ways that were hard to trace but impossible to misunderstand once you knew what to look for. She had gathered evidence and then run, to give herself time to decide what to do with it. When Carter found her, she told him everything. She also told him she was afraid, not of exposure, but of what might happen to her before the exposure could be made public. She asked for time. Carter had been left holding something he couldn't take directly to the police without revealing how he'd found her and where she was. He couldn't hand it to his client, who was the person she was running from. He couldn't hold it indefinitely. So he had made the only arrangement he could think of. He had left everything with someone who was not involved, a stranger at a hotel desk. And he had given the location only to the one person he trusted completely, his younger brother, Daniel. That something was waiting, and where to find it. He had spent his 3 nights at the hotel writing the notebook. He had written down everything he knew. How he'd been hired, what he'd found, what Diane had told him, what he understood about the fraud and the risk she was still carrying. He had written it carefully, the way someone writes something they want to be read correctly. Not a confession, more like an account. A record made by someone who had decided to put the decision in someone else's hands. What he had not known when he took the job was that Daniel worked for the same firm. Not in the fraud, Daniel handled contracts, was peripheral to the money management side, but he was there. He was connected. Carter had spent a week trying to understand whether his brother knew anything. The letter was, among other things, the answer to that question. An answer that required Daniel to make a choice. At 3:20, Daniel stood up. He put the notebook and the phone back in the suitcase and folded the letter into his jacket pocket. He walked to the window and stood there for a moment looking at the parking lot. Then he took out his phone. She heard him make 2 calls. She could not hear the words. The second call lasted longer than the first. When he hung up, he stood looking at the floor for a moment, then walked back to the desk. He said, "I need to call the police." She said, "There's a non-emergency line, or I can." He said, "I know the number." He made the call from the lobby, standing near the window. The officer arrived in 20 minutes. Margaret watched Daniel hand over the suitcase. She watched him show the officer the letter. She watched them leave together, Daniel, the officer, the suitcase, out through the front doors and into the parking lot and out of sight. She was alone at the front desk. It was 4 in the morning. She stood there for a moment and then went to the back office and poured herself the last of the coffee, which had been sitting on the burner since 10 and was no longer drinkable. She drank it anyway. She thought about Carter saying, "I'm sorry to put this on you." She had thought, at the time, that he was apologizing to her. For the inconvenience, for the weight of whatever was in the suitcase, for asking a stranger to hold something that was not hers to hold. But sitting in the back office at 4 in the morning, she understood, he wasn't talking to her. He was apologizing to his brother. He knew Daniel would come. He knew Daniel would stand in that lobby and read the letter and have to decide what to do next. And the one thing Carter couldn't do was watch him do it. So he had left her in the middle, as a witness. Because some apologies need a room to happen in, and she was the room. The missing woman, Diane, was found 3 weeks later, in a rented house 2 states away. She had been there since she left. She came forward to investigators the same week the police came looking. The timing was almost exactly what she had asked Carter for. Her husband was arrested. The firm was audited. 3 of the defrauded clients were elderly people who had trusted the account for years. The fraud had been running for 9 years. Daniel was interviewed multiple times. He had known about certain practices at the firm but had not understood what they meant in full. He was not charged. He resigned the week after the arrest. Carter was not charged with anything. He had held information temporarily, under difficult circumstances, and had made an arrangement that put it in the right hands without exposing the woman he had been asked not to expose. The investigators had questions for him, but no case to make. 3 weeks after that, Margaret's phone rang at the front desk. It was Carter. He did not explain where he had been. He said he wanted to thank her for holding the suitcase. He said she hadn't had to do that. She said, "You didn't give me much choice." He said, "I know. I'm sorry." She laughed. She wasn't entirely sure why. After she hung up, she thought about what exactly she had done. She had kept a suitcase in a back office for 3 nights. She had not opened it. She had given it to the person who came. That was all, but she had also not called the police when she probably should have called the police. She had waited because the man who left it had asked her to, because his apology felt specific, because something in the weight of the request felt like it mattered. She still doesn't know if she did the right thing. She knows it came out all right. She knows those are not the same thing. And she thinks about that sometimes, at 2 in the morning, when the lobby is empty and the only sound is the low hum of the building doing what buildings do when no one is watching. # story notes. Fictional. All characters, events, and details are invented for narrative purposes.